Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, staff writer, fanside.com. I'm joined today by a man who knows how to plant, who knows that the best way to get things are by the dozen, who's just damn near excellent. Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com. This is episode 144, the grossest episode of Fall Start of all time. How are you?
12 by 12, baby. It's all cheaper by the dozen, like Steve Martin. I'm doing good, man. Ready to talk some college football. We kind of get to let our hair down a little bit now at this point because college football season's over. We've got a national champion, so now we get to really cook up some gold for the people.
That's just where we thrive. I
It
mean,
really
just
is.
coming into the show tired, banged up, not even really sure what's going on, struggling to sit in a chair. This is when we're at our absolute best.
100%. We thrive in the face of adversity.
Should play for the Steelers.
That's-
Mike Tomlin threw a firecracker in the
oh yeah.
locker room. Let's go get them, boys. Uh,
Oh, we're ready to rock, baby.
but I think, are we ready to roll here? We obviously fall started here with whatever that was. So for first and 15 today, we're gonna do playoffs. You kidding me? I may have skipped a word there. I don't know. Apparently, I talk in my sleep too.
I'm like a light snorer. Like I'm not like sawing logs out here, but just a little thickness going through. And the NC State podcast is the lightest sleeper in the world, so not a great combo.
Down with the thickness. Just
Down with the thickness, man.
last night I was apparently really coherently saying, like, describe a time with something like this. And then I said, it's all good, man.
My favorite sleep talking story is also like incredibly creepy, but I was at my aunt and uncle's house with my two cousins, and I may have been like 4 or 5 years old, but I'll never forget this because it's like just like straight out of a horror movie. One of my cousins just shoots up, sitting straight up in bed, has no recollection of this ever happening, and he just goes, "What's broken must be fixed," and then he
Oh
falls
my
back
God.
asleep.
My sister one time screamed, "That's not our sink."
Oh no.
We're not going to be worried about broken sinks or whatnot, even though, I'm tired of having the faucets dripping here. So, playoffs, you kidding me? Just any last lingering thoughts from the national championship and the playoff in general? Anything that's kind of in the back of your mind?
So one of the things that I just keep coming back to is I think that like I've seen some stuff online about how because of how talented Ohio State is, because of how good they were like in the playoff, that this is an all-time champion. I know you wrote something about that yesterday for fansided.com, but like I just don't see it, man. You lost to Michigan, you lost two games in the regular season. Like this isn't 2019 LSU we're talking about. It's
No.
just not. So like and like I think talent wise, sure. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna look back in a few years and like a lot of these guys are gonna be thriving in the NFL and we're gonna be like, man, look how good this Ohio State team was. But the second question that's gonna come after that is how the hell did they lose two games? And if you're losing those two games with that collection of talent, I can't consider you an all-time great.
No, you're right though. There's at least five. I think I actually had six teams that won the playoff that were better than them. I think like it was a hard exercise to do. Obviously, I had 2019 LSU number one because that's
Yeah.
just the best offense I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I had 22 Georgia second. I thought that was the really complete team
Hmm.
that was like that repeated, which I think is very impressive. And then I
Absolutely.
think I had the 2018 Clemson had that really filthy defensive line with
Mhm.
Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, Cleveland Farrell before he became a Raiders bust.
Yeah.
Baby Trevor Lawrence before he did some Jaguars things. Travis Etienne before he did Jaguars things. T
Yeah.
Higgins,
Before the
Justin Ross.
Jaguars ruined Clemson. That's who we're gonna blame Trent Baalke for ruining Clemson.
I wonder if he got his bachelor's from Clemson. That'd be amazing.
It'd be incredible stuff.
And then I think like I had what 20 Alabama, which is hard to
Mhm.
calculate because that was COVID. That team was
Yeah.
really good with like Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Devontae Smith. 21 Georgia had an elite defense, so I think that gives them some credibility there. And then I think 23 Michigan, like people hated that team. Like,
People,
and
yeah,
the,
people hated
the
them, but they were damn good.
and then I think I had like 24 Ohio State there. It's probably
Mhm.
just like being able to run the gauntlet. But like
Mhm.
again, you lost two games. And then the worst national champion, I think most people have said was like 2017 Alabama. Georgia kind of threw up on itself
Yeah,
that
yeah,
year.
just puking on itself a little bit. Like I actually rewatched that national championship game, like not too or pretty recently, I guess. Sorry, language is not my first language right now. I'm not operating on at full capacity, but I rewatched that game recently, and man, it was kind of a dud. Like it really wasn't an exciting game. Like some of these games you can go back and you watch and like they're exciting, and like that wasn't one of them. And honestly, I know we got a little bit of drama in this year's in the second half with Notre Dame and Ohio State, but I feel like that one might fall into the same category almost, like I don't think it's going to be like a great rewatch going back.
Yeah, like I think the one that the first time that Clemson won 16 was probably the best because it was like
Mhm.
Deshaun Watson carrying a team that didn't recruit at that high of a level,
Yeah.
and Jalen Hurts just couldn't really throw the football at that point. That was my favorites. For whatever,
2014 Ohio State, I really liked. Like watching Zeke just go absolutely berserk on like the biggest stage. Like that was always a fun one. And like that's me as someone who does not have any affinity for Ohio State. Like that was just a fun game.
no, I'm just a noted Oregon hater. That just feeds into my
Yeah.
everything I know about them.
Right.
I love Dan Lanning. Marcus Mariota can kiss my ass.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I think that's a good point, though. It's with the new playoff and the new format, it's like you have to look at the teams differently. Like being able to it's like apples and oranges at this point. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe in time we will value the 24 Ohio State team more than what it is because of what the players could become. But we also haven't seen anybody else we haven't seen another 12 team playoff or any expansion beyond that. So we haven't seen how anybody else fares in this. So maybe
Yeah.
it'll be two separate things. But I'm right there with you. This team was immensely talented, but was just not consistent or steady at all.
Yeah, I mean that was our criticism about them the entire season. So like I think that stands to reason. And I also think like, it's hard for me to consider you an all-time great champion when you were literally only in the playoff because it was a 12-team playoff. Like had it been the
Right.
14 playoff, you wouldn't have been in it. So like how can I consider you one of the greatest? Like, I know seeding kind of messes things up in terms of like how we're looking at the top four and stuff like that. But like if we're looking at the top four, it was the two participants in the SEC championship game and the two participants in the Big Ten championship game that most likely would have gone into the playoff. Maybe Notre Dame usurps one of them, but Ohio State is not in that conversation.
Yeah, like Georgia and Oregon are definitely getting in. And then it's like you got a debate between Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. And then it's just like Ohio State doesn't even come up at that point. It's like
Yeah.
it's one of and it's the debate there. I would have argued for Notre Dame over Penn State heading
Yeah.
in,
And
but
I think
like I
that's
think
fair,
but
completely fair.
the seeding would have said it would have been Penn State. So
Yeah,
and
but I
then
mean, like, I think that was more not trying to penalize in the 12. Like, I think that the
right,
criteria changed for the 12-team playoff, frankly.
yeah, for sure. I guess like the other thing that stands out to me from this playoff is like how many of these teams like are going to be back? Like
Mhm.
it's more than half probably. Like I
Yeah.
figured that like if we look into it next year, I mean we'll probably talk about this here the next segment and beyond that. Like there's some locks already. And I think like being able to forecast like the playoff locks is much easier than figuring out the field. Like looking at the AP top 25 from the preseason, they didn't really go with the top five. And then
Yeah.
it got worse with every subsequent quintet.
Yeah, it really did. It is tough.
Like I think it was what 21 through 25 was something like was like teams like Iowa and Kansas and NC State and Arizona. And it was
Yeah.
just no.
You're just throwing S at the wall and hoping it sticks, man.
I think that's fair. This playoff was not throwing us against the wall, but we did get some egg on our face.
We did, absolutely.
I wonder if Ward Manuel likes eggs.
There's no way. No, he's like a just a butter toast guy. I can see it in my mind.
Well, we have to read from his manual to find out. Let's move that to the next topic here from Ward Manual's manual. This may take a little while, and that's why I want to get on with this. Our way too early college football playoff field for 2025 and our first four teams out. I did write this for fanside.com. You may have edited it, so we'll see what happens there. But I'll have you let's just work our way down from 1 through 12 just in order. Maybe 1 through 4 and then 12 and then yeah.
Okay, so 1 through 4, I have Texas at number one. I think that Texas is going to be the number one team coming in the country, coming in next year. I have Ohio State at two, which I think some people might say that Ohio State should be number one. Man, you're losing a lot of your roster, and
Yeah.
like I still think you're good. I have you as the number two team in the college football playoff, but like I do wonder if Ohio State is not necessarily as dominant as they could be because they are still very talented. Number three, I have the ACC champion Clemson. Number four, I have the Big 12 champion ASU. And then group of five, again, just throwing S at the wall, hoping egg doesn't end up on my face. I put Navy in as the group of five
Yeah.
champion.
Yeah, so I got some stuff that's similar here. So I have Ohio State and Texas 1-2 as the Big Ten and SEC champion. I think Texas, like, I think that they're going to lose in Athens, but like they'll probably beat them in Atlanta or something like that.
Yeah.
Ohio State still has like the number on Penn State as well. I think Indiana and Oregon pull back a little bit, so that's kind of why I've got them near the top. I agree with you with three with Clemson winning the ACC. I think it's going to be a really good year for Clemson. It wouldn't shock me if Cade Klubnik won the Heisman. I feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of it's turning up there.
It's definitely I'm more bullish on Clemson, a lot more bullish than I was going into this past season for sure.
Yeah, I think getting Tom Allen to replace Wes Goodwin's a big boost. We'll see what happens with Garrett Riley. You're
Mhm.
basically bringing everybody back on your team with the exception of Barrett Carter. So that
Yeah.
that team is really trending up, and you still win the ACC in a down year for you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, I think that one of the things that I'm looking at with Clemson is like, you look at what they did, even in the playoff loss to Texas, like this wide receiver core is kind of getting trending back to where it was previously. Like that had been something that kind of went under the radar because of like, the offensive line, the defense not playing to an elite caliber. The wide receiver talent had really dipped off from where it was when we were talking about like Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, all these guys that came through there and really dominated for a long time, DeAndre Hopkins as well. And so the fact that we're getting guys like Wesco, getting guys like Williams in the building, and like they're actually like living up to their potential, that's a big boost for Clemson, especially in the ACC, which I don't think is going to be a very deep league.
It'll be good at the top. At the bottom, it's going to be a little rough there.
Yeah.
At four, I'm rolling with Iowa State with Rocco
Okay.
Becht and Matt Campbell. I think I
Yeah.
cannot wait for Farmageddon, man, in Dublin, dude.
It's gonna be sick, man. It like I'm right there with you. Like I was splitting hairs between Iowa State and Arizona State. It depends on, and I like Rocco Becht, but I tend to prefer Sam Levitt, I think, at this point, and that's kind of what I came down to as like the deciding factor.
I mean, I may have Arizona State coming up later, so
Okay.
that's
That
fair.
I'll spoil this. That's my only Big 12 team that I have in here. So
Okay, dang. And then at 12, I've got the Miami Redhawks. So I've got
okay.
DeQuan Finn going back to the MAC. He's carved it up. Chuck Martin, he's gonna kick Toledo's ass, and
Always,
Jason
baby.
Candle. Jason Candle may be in the wind. That may be bad.
Your 5,000 candles in the wind.
And I think for number five for me, a guy who I think really knows a lot about little Sebastian, that'd be James Franklin. I've got Penn State at five.
I also have Penn State at five. Like I think Penn State's going to be right on the door. Like I expect them to be better. They're a team who I I am I am watching very closely in the spring portal window whenever we get there because if they go out and they make some splashes at wide receiver, then I might be willing to switch them in Ohio State because I think that's the only thing that's like really holding me back from them is that they haven't done a whole lot to improve that group.
Yeah, like I feel Penn State's every bit a lock to make the playoff next
Yeah.
year. Like it's and I'll probably talk about that next. Number six, I've got Georgia. I feel that like they're going to go back to their basics. They're going to win with defense and running the football to help Gunnar Stockton out. I feel anytime they've got a quarterback with an immense arm talent, whether that would be Carson Beck, Aaron Murray, or Matthew Stafford, they kind of get away from what their bread and butter is. And also with I forget how the ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12 schedule is, but the SEC, it flips. So Georgia had a brutal schedule. Like they had to go
Mhm.
on the road to Oxford, on the road to Tuscaloosa, on the road to Austin. Well, those games are all at home. Yeah, you got to play Tennessee and Knoxville, but like you've owned Tennessee throughout the Josh Heupel era, and you may lose that game, and it's not going to punish you that badly.
No, 100%. Like Georgia's in a very good spot moving forward and like I do think kind of the points we were making going into the Notre Dame game, like I do think that Stockton and the Georgia offense will benefit from being a more simplified version of what they were supposed to be. Like they were running a much more pro style offense with Beck because Beck is a more pro style quarterback than Gunnar Stockton is.
For sure. So who do you have at six?
So I also have Georgia. Sorry, I should have said that. But yeah, like I'm right there with you. I think that Georgia, the schedule sets up nicely for them in terms like it's still tough. It's still the SEC, but like it is more manageable and a lot less daunting than it was a year ago. I think that some of the teams that we also saw at the top of the ACC or SEC, excuse me, like pull back. Like I don't have Ole Miss in the playoff field. Like I don't
No,
even have them in the first four out. Like
no.
there's a lot of questions about that Rebels team. You're losing a lot, and you also failed to make the playoff this year anyway. So like I think that Georgia is set up nicely going through the SEC.
Yeah, it's like even if you think they're going to pull back, it's not like I don't think Georgia's going to win the national championship next year, but like
Yeah.
they're essentially a lock to make the playoff. They're like very borderline. It's
Mhm.
not it's not it's not like Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State. Like that's absolutely happening.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's that's going to be at the top.
And then at seven, I've got Notre Dame.
Okay.
I feel like they're gonna get the benefit of the doubt from having such a great playoff run where if they just win 10 games and don't have a terrible loss, like they're gonna get in. Uh, we'll see what happens. I think Steve Angeli is like really looks really good at quarterback. That team could be a lot of fun. You may lose Al Golden if you haven't lost him already to the Bengals, but Notre Dame has been a top six team in the college football playoff era.
Mhm.
So like I kind of have a hard time like unless they really fall off and they lose like they win like 9 games, or if they lose 9 games, like it's
If
fall
they
in
lose 9 games, yeah, they're screwed. That's not going to go well for them.
I just yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I have them like just kind of in for the time being at seven.
So I have Oregon at 7, and I think I might be a little more bullish on what Oregon's bringing back than you are. I think honestly, getting Dante Moore into the building is going to be what this Oregon program needs to kind of take a next step because, like, we still don't know necessarily what Dante Moore is, but I like the fact that he came into Oregon and learned for a year, like, and is staying in there and like got to learn the system and is going to be able to step into that. Obviously, a immensely talented player coming out of the Detroit area, and I think that one of the things that has kind of bothered me a little bit with Bo Nix and then Dylan Gabriel to some degree is it just feels like you're trying to just get the sure thing in there without necessarily the advanced upside that someone like Dante Moore brings to the table. We know that
Yes.
the roster is extremely talented. That's Dan Lanning's biggest strength, even more so than his defensive schematics, is his recruiting ability. And like Oregon's done that well both on the in the high school recruiting and but done that well in the transfer portal. So like we know that Oregon is going to be a talented roster. I think the quarterback is the thing that's going to kind of take them to the next level. And I think Dante Moore at least has that potential.
I've got Oregon coming up in a little bit. I'm kind of done with him. Like I'm just like just make
Yeah.
it happen. Like
Yeah.
it's you've never won a national title. You've got all the Phil Knight money in the world. I mean, he's not getting any younger. You're recruiting, you've got a fantastic coach. You had this was last year was the year to do it. It was kind of a weak field. There wasn't really any juggernaut team last year. It could have been Oregon, and they were not ready for it. I hope that the loss to Ohio State's a referendum, and they go out there and they be mentally tough, which has not been Oregon's bread butter like
No,
ever. It's
no, it
never,
has not.
never. And I'm pulling for Dan Lanning to do it. I'd be very happy if he won a national title there because Oregon just historically is not a blue blood. It's become one of late
Yeah.
since Mike Bellotti took over, and like I root for him because he's a fraternity brother of mine. I'm like, okay, let's make this happen. But I'm just at the end of the day with Oregon, I think that like the Big Ten still kind of sucks at the bottom,
Mhm.
and I'm of the belief if you're a top three team in the Big Ten or SEC, you're going to make the playoff,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where I feel with Oregon, and that's how I feel with my team. I've got at number eight. I've got Tennessee.
Okay, nice. I have Notre Dame at 8. And just to kind of further your Notre Dame point, the reason I have them like a little bit lower, like I agree with everything you said. Schedule's a little bit tougher next year. And so like I do think there is the potential, like I still think if they're a 10-win team, which I think they can easily do with this schedule, like I still think they're in the playoff as a 10-win team. I just think the seeding might be a little bit lower. But you start off the season at Miami, at Hard Rock, then you go and you host Texas A&M again. You got to play at Arkansas. USC should, in theory, be a little bit better next year. So maybe that game's a little bit tougher. You got a tough Syracuse team on there. And then, you have the ACC schedule that's not really that daunting. But, like, I do think, like, getting that Miami game in there is a little bit tougher. Playing at Miami to open the season when you're breaking in a new quarterback, although Miami's going to be doing the same with Carson Beck. Like, I do think that there are more trouble spots for Notre Dame than there were in their 2024 schedule.
I think that's totally fair. I guess to unpack my point with Tennessee is like I retaining Tim Banks is huge. I think that allows them to, cultivate more guys on defense to replace the James Pierce Juniors of the world.
Yeah.
I would like to believe that Nico Iamaleava is going to get better. but he's got the DJU quality in him where I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel's offense can expose and beat teams that are unprepared, not really buttoned up. But when they go up against a team that's like in their weight class or better, they just can't do it. They're kind of like the Penn State of the SEC in that regard.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, I think he could beat Georgia at home. I think that lines up pretty well. Again, the schedule flips. So, like in reality, like Alabama's gettable. I don't think you're going to lose to Arkansas next year.
Hmm.
There may be another tough game on their horizon. Maybe it's Mizzou, maybe it's South Carolina. I forget who else is on their schedule off the top of my head, but like that was very much in favor of Tennessee last year. It'll be in favor for them this year. It's hard for me to see them winning any fewer than 10 games.
Yeah, I have Tennessee coming up still in a little bit. I don't have them at 9. At 9, I
Yes.
have South Carolina. So I'm going in the SEC, but a different team. And
Yes.
I'm planting my flag. You could have seen this coming a mile away. I'm big on South Carolina. I think Lenore Sellers made a lot of progress as a passer. We know what a fantastic athlete and runner is at quarterback, but I think he made a lot of strides there. You bring a lot of offensive skill position talent back. I think that's really good for them. You bring Dylan Stewart back on the defensive line. They've been hitting the portal hard. They've been recruiting at a high level for South Carolina. I think this is a South Carolina team that is only going like I'm trying to like correlate what they kind of look like, and I can't quite figure out like what team from like this year's playoff they would be. Like they're more high profile than Indiana, and like you can see it coming more than you can in Indiana. They're not sneaking up on anybody like an SMU. They almost feel like this year's Tennessee, where like they
Yeah.
may have a perplexing loss along the way, but they're also going to have like a couple signature wins where it's like you really have to take this team seriously. And I think that they're not a playoff lock, but it's not hard at all for me to see the path.
The best game of rivalry weekend, maybe Palmetto. That
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be that.
it's gonna be electric, dude. It's gonna be
Yeah.
good.
And you
Although
pro
Iron Bowl is gonna be pretty good because like I think
Mhm.
I think Alabama and Auburn might be a lot closer than people in Tuscaloosa might want to believe.
That's true. I would just say like, the chance of Lenore Sellers and Katie Klubnik both going to New York for the Heisman is very high. Like I would have them both, and
Mhm.
honestly, it's probably 1 and 2 for me at this point.
Would it be 1 and 2 for me? Am I missing? I got my boy Nuss doing something in there. So I'll reserve a spot for Garrett Nussmeyer in the top 2 conversation.
Yeah, and there's other guys like Drew Aller will have a good year. I
Mhm.
think Jeremiah Smith will be a factor. The Rocco Beck, Sam Levitz. We'll see what happens with them. So yeah, I've got Oregon at 9, and I've got South Carolina at 10.
Okay. Okay. So at 10, I have LSU. And going to my Garrett Nussmeyer thing, I think he's a great quarterback. The fact that he's coming back is obviously huge. They've replenished the wide receiver core in the transfer portal. Offensive line is still going to be good. Most importantly, they're addressing the defense. They've taken in, I think, like 7 guys who are probably going to start for them in the transfer portal. You're addressing the biggest weakness. You're getting Blake Baker some actual personnel to be able to work with and improve what has killed you, frankly, the past 2 seasons. The offense has not been a problem the past 2 seasons. It's not going to be a problem in 2025. If you improve the defense, this is a team that can absolutely compete in the SEC.
LSU is my first team out.
Okay.
My last team is Arizona State.
Okay. Nice.
So yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. My thing is just the Brian Kelly of it all. Like I don't care who LSU plays week 1, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't even know who it is. It just they're going to lose. But like Garrett Nussmeier may be the number 1 overall pick. He may go to the Saints. I feel like put that. Um, Especially if Joe Brady's the Saints coach, like that's happening.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely going to happen.
So yeah, and then so if I go for my first 4 out, I've got LSU at 13, Indiana at 14, Florida at 15, and Louisville at 16.
Okay. So I said I had Tennessee coming up in a little bit. I actually have them as my first team out.
Okay.
And it was honestly just because I have Miami as my 11 seed, and I don't feel great about it. I really wanted to put Tennessee in as the 11 seed, but it felt weird having 5 SEC teams. I don't
Yeah.
know if we're going to get there. So, like, that's kind of like, I actually think Tennessee is a better team than Miami. So, like, I probably should just buck up and put Tennessee in at 11. But anyway, I have Miami in there. I don't know if the defense is fixed. I think Carson Beck is obviously a good quarterback, but we don't know what his health is. We know that the skill position talent's going to be there. They're kind of a mixed bag. I don't know what Miami is going to be. Tennessee at 13. I have Florida at 14. I have Michigan at 15. I'm starting to get dangerously high on Michigan as I talk myself more into Bryce Underwood. And then I have SMU at 16. I'm SMU is going to be a team that I probably oscillate on the most throughout the offseason because, like, I'm a big fan of Kevin Jennings, regardless of what some people on the internet might say. And I think that, and obviously, we're big fans of Brett Lashley and what he's able to do. The defense has been really good for the past few years, and I don't think that's going anywhere. But at the same time, like, did they kind of catch lightning in the bottle in the first year in the ACC? I don't know. And, like, maybe we see a little bit of regression back to the mean a little bit for the Mustangs.
Yeah, I don't think they sneak up on anybody,
Yeah.
but like they're kind of like that next group of teams. I've got like SMU and Miami and Michigan. It's kind of like that next group of teams. Probably A&M as well is kind of what I would
Mhm.
say is down further there. And then I guess if I had to go even further beyond that, like who's the top 12, probably K-State or something.
Yeah, like Illinois, I think has to be in there. They're
Yeah.
returning a lot. I think like 16 starters they're returning. So like you got to look at Illinois a little bit.
Hmm.
K-State's probably in there. Maybe BYU as well with
Yeah.
Retzlaff returning. I'm trying to think if there's someone else that we're maybe Georgia
Oh,
Tech. You could probably put the
Geor-
Bees in there.
yeah, Georgia Tech, Baylor might be high
Baylor's
too.
a good one.
Yeah, I forgot that like Illinois brought back Luke Altmaier, so that's big. Syracuse loses Kyle McCord, so that's a little tough.
Yeah, and I have Alabama and Auburn kind of in this
Yeah,
range as well. Like in case you couldn't tell, we're worried about Bama. Like
yeah.
I'm not quite there with what's going on right now.
I guess like my Bama thought is like DeBoer's kind of got his our kind of guys sort of thing. I'm like, this is Bama, this is Washington. I'm like, I literally wrote this. I'm like, you can have steak and lobster covered in caviar every meal if you want to. This is Bama.
Yeah.
You don't have to be eating like the gross British food, like thinking that you're getting bombed from above. Like Churchill's not in office anymore. You can
Yeah,
eat
we don't
normal
have to have
food.
beans with every meal, man. We don't have to do that. And no, I think like that's a really good point by you because like when you look at what made Saban successful, yes, there were periods where like it looked real similar with like, you look at the Mark Ingram teams and the Derrick Henry teams, like they were just running the ball down your throat. But like when he got someone like Bryce Young, when he got a Tua in the building or something like that, the offense changed. Even with Jalen Hurts, the offense changed from what those previous offenses were. And he was able to adapt and he just got the most talented players in the building and adapted. Whereas it seems that Kalen DeBoer is trying to mold Alabama to be Kalen DeBoer's team.
He's not going to be the CEO type. This is why I'm so anti-offensive minded coaches in college football. It's like, well, my plays, my playbook, this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's why Chip Kelly and Lincoln Riley never won anything because it's like you need to fit my system, you need to fit my scheme, and it's like you're trying to like you're trying to scratch the side of your head like this. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? I'm like, this is you have to be like the Kirby Smart, the Ryan Day of it all. It's just like I'm just going to get more good players, and we don't have to execute that high because they're so talented. We can keep it simple. We can play faster, and we can beat you. That's how you do it in college.
I mean, we're seeing Sarkisian slowly make that
Yeah.
make that transition, I think. Because like what has Steve Sarkisian won? Not really a whole lot, but we're seeing
Hmm.
Texas get closer and closer because he is adapting in that way.
And that's kind of why I think Michigan eventually will get it right under Sherman because it's like that's what Harbaugh did, and that's what
Mhm.
he's going to do. So as long as people still like Sherman and recruit well, like that, it'll happen. It'll happen there in Michigan. We always knew it was going to reset after that loaded team. These things happen.
Yeah, I mean, like that was a lot of talent drain, like a lot of talent drain. And you also, refuse to get a quarterback who can play the position. That probably didn't help.
No, no, Vegas, baby. So, orgy the Whoopsie Daisy King. What a quarterback group.
Dan Mullen is just feeling the vapors right now. He's loving it.
Alex Orgy, we're gonna make you Tim Tebow in
That's
Vegas.
right.
All right, let's recap our 12 team playoff brackets, our first four out, and move on to the next topic. So you go first.
So at one, I have Texas. At two, I have Ohio State. At three, I have Clemson. At four, I have Arizona State. At five, I have Penn State. At six, I have Georgia. At seven, I have Oregon. At eight, I have Notre Dame. At
Notre
nine,
Dame.
Notre Dame, baby. Nine, I have South Carolina. 10, LSU. 11, Miami. 12, Navy. 13, first team out, Tennessee. 14, Florida. 15, Michigan. 16, SMU.
All right, all right, all right. So I've got my top 12 are Ohio State, one winning the Big Ten, Texas, two winning the SEC, three Clemson winning the ACC, four Iowa State winning the Big 12, five would be Penn State as your Big Ten runner up, six would be Georgia as your SEC runner up, seven Notre Dame as a national independent at large, eight Tennessee as an SEC at large, Oregon as a Big Ten at large at nine, South Carolina SEC at large at 10. 11, Arizona State as your Big 12 runner up. 12 would be the Miami, Ohio Redhawks winning the MAC and the group of five. First four out are LSU at 13, 14, Indiana, 15 would be Florida, and then your I think ACC runner-up at 16 would be Louisville.
Okay, I like that. I
Yeah,
probably should be higher on Louisville than I am, if I'm being
yeah.
honest.
I think Miller Moss is going to be damn good,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm 100% with you. I probably should have them higher.
Yeah, one team that we did not have in here that we should be higher on is your team, the North Carolina Tar Heels. So let's do some Du Hast next. Du Hast, Cody. Will North Carolina ever make the playoff under Bill Belichick?
I'm gonna go full homer. Do Haas one S, baby.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're gonna do it. It's not gonna be soon. And I think it'll take at least 2 years to get to this point. But I do think that I think that Bill Belichick is more or less like not like I think he is the ultimate CEO type for college football. Like he's not coming in there to call plays or do anything like that. He's there to build a program and develop. Like I think that's what he's going to be able to do. And I think that's when he's at his best when he's with the Patriots. And I think when he's at North Carolina now, I think that's where he's going to thrive. And I think that we've already seen the pull of Bill Belichick like have some effect. Like, and I think that's only going to grow if like we look, I think I liken it a little bit, and this is weird because I cannot think of two different personalities, but like we look at Colorado and Deion Sanders. Like I think the 2025 season could be a little rough for the Tar Heels, if I'm being
Yeah.
completely honest with you. But I do like I'm not thrilled about Max Johnson, just like I wasn't thrilled about Max Johnson going into last season. So like I do think it could be some stumbling blocks, just like there were stumbling blocks in year one with Colorado. But then you have Colorado competing for a Big 12 championship game in year two, competing for a playoff spot down to the wire at the end of the season. I'm not sure North Carolina necessarily gets there, but I do think Bill Belichick can have that similar type of effect. Like you see that the vision is not some like half-baked idea where he's just using it as a stepping stone. Like we found out that Deion actually wants to be at Colorado. We're finding out quickly that Bill Belichick actually wants to be at North Carolina. And I think as we see that develop, as we see that transpire further, that's only going to make North Carolina a more attractive place. Like they have all the resources in the world. They have a really strong recruiting base in the Southeast, like with the North Carolina, Virginia area. I think Bill Belichick's going to have a lot of success there eventually.
Yes. They were the team that I thought that offered that put out the Quinn Ewers 8
I
million
think so
buyout.
too. I'm
It,
100%
it's
in
either
on
them
that.
or it's either them or Michigan State. That's the two that I kind of came down
I
to
like
because
that.
it's like Georgia's preoccupied. They try to figure out they want Beck back or they
Yeah.
don't. And then Alabama, I just kind of feel like they're preoccupied too also. And then I think what was the other team out there that I had mentioned
Like
or
I could see
Oregon.
Oregon. Oregon would make sense.
Yeah, I could see that too, but like I think North Carolina is the team. I think
Yeah, I
that it,
agree.
Michael, and also the fact it's like Michael Lombardi's like, hey, you want $8 million?
Hey, you want to? I mean, look, let's be honest. If Quinn Ewers went to North Carolina, you'd see me every week on this program wearing a North Carolina Quinn Ewers jersey. Like that would just be good for my soul.
I know, like you're your firstborn kid, which you're not gonna have. So, like his name would be Quinn Ewers Williams.
That's right.
Quinn Williams.
Quinn Ewers, Rice Williams. It'll be great.
Yes, I know. The Rice Williams. That's so good. Also, I'm gonna go with the Duhast 1S as well. I think it's going to happen. I would say if Belichick's the head coach for 5 years before Steve Belichick takes over, they will have a team at one point that will be as good as SMU is last year or Indiana last year. We're not asking North Carolina to win the ACC. We're just asking them to get to Charlotte, and at
Mhm.
that point, like that could happen. I think in the playoff era, they made one New Year's Six bowl. I think it was the Orange Bowl that they played
Mhm.
A&M. So
Yeah.
like at that point, like if you just do that, you make it the playoff.
Yeah.
I also am of the belief, yeah, it's going to be rough the first year, but I think the fact you've got Steve Belichick, Freddie Kitchens, and Michael Lombardi, those are all names you can all use that to recruit and build around. It's not just some guys. There's some names here that I think will play well with people. It would land well with the people that they need to get to make this program. It's like, you know what, I'm intrigued by this. I want to come here and play here, and I think that ultimately works out. Again, it's not going to be right away, but I think like it probably happens like year four.
No, 100. Like, and I think like when you talk about the staff, like, what's one thing those guys all have in common? NFL experience. Like they've been on NFL sidelines or NFL front offices, and like I think when you look at that, when we're in this NIL era, like it's becoming college football is becoming even more professionalized or more professionalized than it ever has been before. And like I think in that the idea of how to be a professional, how to develop into an NFL player becomes even more attractive if you're a recruit or a transfer or what, in the talent acquisition business. And Bill Belichick can flex that. He's like, hey, look at my Super Bowl rings. Hey, look at Tom Brady. Hey, look at everything that I've accomplished. Michael Lombardi can say, hey, I met with A, B, C, D. Brady Kitchens can be there. And Steve Belichick can talk about his, everything that he's done. And I think that when you look at this coaching staff, it is going to be attractive for recruiting. Like I think it's going to be something that they can sell. Like, hey, if you want to go to the NFL and you want to be successful in the NFL, come to North Carolina. We'll get you ready for that point, not just on the field, but also off the field as well. Like we will fully prepare you to be a professional.
Totally. So I'm always of the belief if somebody's going to be better, somebody has to be worse. Wins are a finite resource. The program that I think has to pull back for North Carolina to move forward, it's not the ACC. It's Notre Dame. That's the one that
Mm.
I think needs to happen because it's like you're going for like the same academic sort of types. And I could see if North Carolina is playing like Notre Dame, that's what I envision North Carolina being in the playoff
I
when they
can
do make it.
I can see that, and I think that there's an avenue in the next couple of years where that happens, and
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with Notre Dame itself. It has everything to do with Marcus Freeman leaving Notre Dame, and I
Yeah.
think that's very much on the table in the next few years, particularly if Notre Dame makes it back to the playoff, has another good run. Like that Marcus Freeman to the NFL buzz is only going to grow stronger as he gets, as he turns 40.
Yeah, as he turns 40, and the Chicago Bears are going to wonder like what the hell did Ben Johnson just say at this press conference again? I'm
Did
just
not crush it. Did not crush it.
that's I'm just Colin Cowherd said this is like, he would sell all of his blood to buy cryptocurrency if it doesn't work out. And I'm like, it may not work out, bud. Just be ready for this.
Hey, he's going to be rolling in the crypto. It's going to be great.
I don't I don't think the NFL is trying to sell you food.
It's okay.
That's that commercial from Christian McCaffrey and Matthew McConaughey lives in my head rent free.
I mean, it's goaded. There's no question.
Also, you'd have to wonder if do you think Bill Belichick's gonna do the Affleck commercials with Coach Prime?
I hope so.
I
I hope
hope
it's
so.
Saban, and Dion out there just rocking it on a boat.
That'd be amazing. That would be Columbus, Georgia will never be the same again.
They need to like recreate the Odell Beckham Giants like yacht party with the three
Yeah,
of them.
they do the Three Amigos. Uh, so Jeff, if we do this, Deion Sanders is the equivalent of Martin Short, probably.
Yeah, that's Martin Short for sure.
Uh, Nick Saban, that's Nick Saban, that's Chevy Chase. Then I
Yeah.
guess Bill Belichick is Steve Martin or
Oh,
something.
100%. Yeah.
Just recreate movies. That's what they're gonna do the whole time.
I saw a tweet the other day, Challengers, the Zendaya movie, the tennis movie
Yeah.
or whatever, and it said Challengers, except it's pickleball and it stars Meryl Streep, Martin Short, and Steve Martin. And I was like, yes, I'm there for opening night.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Also, I had no idea Samuel L. Jackson was in Jurassic Park.
Oh,
Didn't
dude, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
like this is the movie that traumatized me from scary movies because I walked downstairs with the kids being chased by the raptor in the lab. So I was like 4 years old. So that ruined it for me forever.
I mean, he's the, hold on to your butts guy. Like, I mean, I was actually, I can't, what podcast was it? I was listening to some movie podcast the other day, and they were talking about how like we don't really understand the fact that like Samuel L. Jackson was kind of just like a bit part actor like Jurassic Park until Pulp Fiction came around,
Yeah,
and then that kind of like made him Samuel L. Jackson.
Jules, man. It's just
Jules, man.
I also love the fact they go to Quentin Tarantino's house and he's wearing like a banana slugs jersey.
Absolutely.
Pulp Fiction's great.
It's
Just
a
like,
great movie.
oh my gosh. But any other thoughts about Belichick before we move on to our next topic?
I'm I'm excited for it. And I didn't think like
Yeah,
when the hire first happened, I wanted to sort out my thoughts and like really sit with it before like I made an assessment whether or not I felt good about it or not. I'm at the point where I feel good about it. Maybe that's copium. Maybe I'm, just trying to deal with it, but I think you could have done a lot worse in terms of hire. I'll say that.
it was not a great hiring cycle, and you got probably the biggest rock star candidate by far.
Yeah.
So maybe you win.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll see.
Speaking of winning, it's all about golf here with some 4 for 4. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Try to figure out a transition there. What if you bought like 4 cartons of 4 eggs? So 4, 4, 4. That's 12. That's a dozen. That's yeah.
That's a dozen, baby.
Can you shoot a 12 on a hole in golf or like after 10, it's like you're done, brother.
Oh no, you can shoot a 12. Some dude last week shot a 13 because there's at PGA West in California, there is a hole that has like I believe it's like a 20-foot face that goes down into like a big just sand pit. It's not even a bunker, it's just a sand pit. And dude could not get out of the sand pit. It was unbelievable.
Did you watch any of the TGL the other day?
Oh, absolutely. Love the
Yeah.
TGL.
I was watching that there at one of the only bar that was open when it was snowed and Atlanta shut down again.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Drive one with Billy Horschel doing the Dirty Bird. That was
Big
like
win for the home team, baby. Let's
we
go.
are we are living in a simulation.
That's right.
Arthur Blank versus Steve Cohen in somewhere in Florida at the SoFi Center.
It's Palm Beach Gardens, baby.
Oh God. Of course that's a place.
Of
Of
course
course
it
that
is.
ex yeah, we're gonna come up with another uh zip code with gardens. Like, does anybody live there? I don't know.
No. No,
Every
it's a
every time
hypothetical place.
I write Miami Gardens, I'm like, you can't be serious.
It's not real.
It's not real, man. This isn't real. But what is real are these college football teams. Yes, we're gonna talk about what Power Four teams in each league are destined to be better and doomed to be worse in 2025. You have the floor. Let's start with the ACC.
So I'll start with I think are going to be worse. And I think I have to go with Miami on this one. Like I think that SMU is obviously a candidate, but I'm still high enough on Kevin Jennings. But they're so like I know this is counterintuitive considering I had Miami in my playoff field, but like I think the talent is still going to be there, but I don't think the defense has improved. That killed him. And like for as good as Carson Beck was at times at Georgia, he's coming off this elbow injury. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know what that's going to look like. Moreover, like I don't know how that's going to be a fit in this offense. Like Carson Beck is a substantially different player than Cam Ward is, and like how are you going to adjust the offense to him? I think Carson Beck might actually be a tick down in terms of just upside, and when you compare him to Cam Ward. So like if the offense isn't masking how bad that defense is, I think Miami could definitely pull back a little bit. In terms of teams that I think are going to be better, I think Georgia Tech makes an even bigger leap. Like I think that Georgia Tech brings back a lot of experience, brings back a lot of talent that really caused some teams problems. And I think as their talent grows, as their experience level grows, this is a team that I think is going to be knocking on the door closer to the playoff than we really expected.
For sure. Kind of right there with a lot of sentiments with you. With Miami, that's what the money's for, and that's what the calendar's for.
Yeah, the cap.
Yeah. Welcome home, brother.
My favorite tweet after Carson Beck transferred to Miami because of the Cavender twin that he is currently dating was someone said, "Can we get the other Cavender twin to date Jeremiah Smith?"
He is from Miami.
I'm saying.
Inside of us, there are two different wolves.
That's right. And they're both just Cavender twins.
They're wolves the whole time. All right, so destined to be better. I'm right there with you with Georgia Tech. I feel that like Brett Key's really got that thing humming. We'll see what happens. They had a really tough schedule last year. It probably doesn't ease up, but I think that they continue to make strides, and they're showing that they can beat teams like Miami consistently, which is
Yeah.
great for them. Low key rivalry. I also think Louisville is going to be better with Miller
Mhm.
Moss. I feel that like another year under Jeff Brom, they're trending up. I'm kind of down on Miami a little bit, but not to the degree that I am on Syracuse and SMU.
Okay.
I think Syracuse, like, they arrived too soon. They went 9-3. I know that like Fran Brown and I'm trying to think of that. What's the guy? Is it Ellis Robinson or is that the player? Yeah, I think it
No,
whatever it
Ellis
is.
Robinson, that's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So like they're gonna recruit it, but like they'll pull back a little bit here because that's Syracuse. You have the dead cat
Mhm.
bounce. That's what they've been defined by under Dino Babers. So I'm kind of feeling like they're going to pull back a little bit. SMU, I just don't think they're going to catch anybody by surprise. Again, I don't know how the ACC schedule works. I know they're going to play Cal at Stanford or something like that a bunch, but like Kevin Jennings is really good. I love Rhett Lashley as a head coach. That's kind of my apprehension there with the Ponies.
No, and your point is well taken with SMU. I can't discredit what Rhett Lashlee has done because like one of the I think underrated hallmarks of Rhett Lashlee since he's come to SMU is SMU hasn't really pulled back, man. Like they've just kind of kept it consistent. They might be slightly worse, but I think Syracuse is probably I'm more with you on Syracuse just because like I trust Fran Brown. I trust that this program is going to be more sustainable, but I do think that, like you said, like the dead cat bounce, I think that we might have another year before we actually get to this being a sustainable thing.
Feel that. Yeah, with Rhett Lashlee, it's like just running on a, when he goes to a party, he just brings his own shrimp cocktail. Like, that's just for me, man.
100%.
Rhett, that's just horseradish. It's fine.
It's fine, man.
I gotta clear my brain. I gotta think clear, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes it easier to run when you hurt when you cry.
That's
Okay, let's do the Big Ten. Like who are you higher on? Who are you less high on or not high on at all?
so Michigan is who I'm higher on. I think Michigan has the potential to win 10 games next year, quite frankly. Like Bryce Underwood, I think people are like probably already tired. College football fans are probably already tired of hearing the name, but just because like he's being touted, he's worth it, man. Like he is not Cam Newton, but he's close. And like we saw what the effect Cam Newton had on an Auburn team that frankly wasn't that good. And Michigan, I think, has a lot better roster, a lot better infrastructure than Auburn had at that time when Cam Newton came through there. And when you put a quarterback of that ilk, someone who elevates the offense in the way that I think Bryce Underwood can in Michigan with the defense that we know they're going to have even after losing Mason Graham and Will Johnson, like it's Michigan. They're going to have a good defense. That's kind of what they do. With the talent they still have on offense, I think Michigan is a threat to win 9-10 games and like really cause some trouble in the Big Ten.
I do not have Michigan on either of these, but like I'm okay with it. I'm pretty high in Nebraska and I'm high in Michigan State next year.
Yeah, Michigan State was the other one I was really looking at because I think it happens.
I think just another year of Dylan Raiola, another year of Aiden Childs. I think it's going to get easier. Ooh,
Yeah.
Childs thinks it's going to get easier, but like Matt Rule, Jonathan Smith are good head coaches. They'll figure it out. Like Nebraska is kind of how you feel about Michigan's how I kind of feel about Nebraska.
Yeah.
Nebraska could be the Big Ten version of Tennessee. Like they could be that now.
Yeah.
I think it eventually. Also, it's a third year under Matt Rule, and that's when things really happen under him. It's
Mhm.
not some false start. I guess it is false start. This is what the show is, but it's the Brian Kelly pop here. It really does happen there under Matt Rule. Either you win 10 games or you get fired. So that's what happens.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see which one it is, but I'd probably trend toward more towards 10 games than I do getting fired at this point.
I think that's fair. And then I'm kind of down on Indiana and Illinois. I think Indiana just like the threat of surprise. Probably for both of them does hurt. I love Fernando Mendoza going into IU. I think Illinois getting Luke Altmaier back is a big help. But again, it's like somebody's got to be better. Someone's got to be worse. I think they pull back, and that's why I only have three Big Ten teams in the playoff.
So I actually disagree with you in Illinois. I think Illinois might actually be a little bit better than they were last year. And I think that they might actually take the Indiana spot in terms of like being in that mix as the college football playoff contender, the fourth one out of the Big Ten. Them and Michigan, I can kind of see battling it out for that spot. I'm with you on Indiana though. Indiana was who I had down. I think that we're Fernando Mendoza fans. We think that's a great pickup for them. He also has 2 more years of eligibility left, and I think that's important to consider because I think that 2026 is when we see Indiana kind of bounce back. I think this could be a rough year. I kind of developed this comparison. I can see 2025 Indiana being a little bit like 2025 or 2024 Arizona, where you're bringing back your quarterback, or you're bringing in a quarterback in Indiana's case, but you brought back Fafita and McMillan with Arizona, and you thought, okay, they can compete in the Big 12. Well, they couldn't. They weren't nearly good enough, and like Indiana's losing more than Curtis Short. They're losing both of their backs. They're losing the majority of the receiving core. They're bringing back Elijah Surratt, which is a big thing, but I think like Mendoza and Surratt are kind of going to be on an island where they can't really hang at the Big Ten. They're not sneaking up on anyone, like you said. So I think like this is going to be like a fringe bowl team, frankly, in 2025. But 2026, I think Signetti, I have enough faith in him and his ability to build a program that we see Indiana take back up in 2026.
I'm also a little bit high on UCLA. I think also getting a Tino
Mhm.
Sinceri over there helps the Bruins. Sean Foster seems to be the right fit for what they want to do. Again, it shows like what do we actually know with these hires? This is great. Tom Fernelli's got it best. I love the hire. We'll see what happens.
Yep, 100%. C plus, baby.
C plus baby. C pluses get you degrees, I guess.
That's right.
Big 12. Who are you? Okay, I'm I guess I'll start. I guess you need a little
Okay.
more time. I'm higher on Houston and Kansas next year.
Okay.
I think that like Connor Wegman makes it work in a lesser league. I think I'm kind of banking on the fact that Willie Fritz and Lance Leipold are good head coaches. They kind of figured things out there in the second half of last year, but the start was really rough for them. So I think that they're going to move up. And then as far as worse is, I think I have Colorado pulling back, obviously, and I think I have BYU pulling back a little bit too, just because the threat of surprise isn't there anymore.
So I'll start with the negative. I have Colorado pretty number one with the bullet in this, just because I've mentioned it. Like I don't understand the Caden Salter thing, quite frankly. Like I think that he's a poor fit for what Pat Shermer liked to do in that offense. I think it's going to be a weird fit. And like if the Colorado offense pulls back, what are the Buffaloes? Like this defense was not this defense was improved last year, but it still wasn't a world beater. And so like you're looking at a team that I think could just be maybe slightly above average on both sides of the ball. And in the Big 12, being slightly above average with the volatility of that league, I don't think is really an advantage. And so like I could see Colorado pulling back to 6-6 or something like that. Like I still think they're a bowl team, but I don't think they're competing to win the Big 12 necessarily. In terms of teams I think are going to be better, I like the Houston pool. I really agree that like I think Connor Wegman needed a change of scenery more than anything else. Like I think he needed to not be at Texas A&M anymore. And so I think Houston will benefit from that. But in terms of the team I'm looking at, I'm actually looking at Texas Tech. They brought in a really strong portal haul, one of the best in the country. And we saw them like not necessarily compete for the Big 12 title, but kind of put themselves like on the fringe of that mix this year. And I think that with the portal haul, with a lot of the guys that you're bringing back, I think Texas Tech could be a team that we're not necessarily circling as the Big 12 favorite, but we wouldn't be surprised if they won the Big 12 next year.
No, the only reason I didn't really consider them is I think losing Zach Kitley to the FAU job
Yeah.
hurts the offense a little bit, but Joe McGuire can recruit. He's
Mhm.
shaking babies and kissing hands,
That's
man.
right. That's what he does.
And then the SEC. So I think Florida and Mississippi State are going to be better.
Okay.
Florida, I think, is pretty obvious. DJ Lagway is
Yeah.
really talented. Billy Napier survived the gauntlet. The schedule's still going to be insanely tough, but it flips. So
Yes.
we'll see what happens there. As long as Scott Strickland is, it him and Billy Napier are getting along, it'll continue to work.
Mhm.
They might be Georgia next year. We'll see what happens. As far as Mississippi State is concerned, I don't know if it's Shapen, I don't know if it's Kremenhook, but I like Jeff Levy's vibes there. I like what he's doing. I feel like this thing was always gonna have to bottom out, but I don't think the fan base or anybody really cares. There's talent there. That team plays really hard. I think Mississippi State could potentially be like, I'm not saying as good as Indiana is probably as good as like they can have like a UCLA type of year where it's like, whoa, this team's a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, like sneak up on a lot of people and just like cause teams more trouble. I like that call for Mississippi State. Florida, yeah, like you said, obvious in terms of improving. I think my number one though is Auburn. Like I think
Yeah.
Auburn is like we've made a lot of jokes at Auburn in the 2024 season, and I think rightfully so. Like you kept rolling this out and it didn't work. But I'm a big fan of Jackson Arnold. I think he's going to be the right fit for a Hugh Freeze offense. The way that Hugh Freeze has been recruiting and working the transfer portal is impressive, and like this roster is going to be what like when we think of good Auburn, that's what this roster looks like. This roster looks like good Auburn, and so like I have no reason to not believe that it won't be good Auburn because Hugh Freeze deserves all the flack that he gets, but he's also a pretty damn good
Yeah.
football coach.
I didn't really have Auburn on here. Again, I have no real feel for Alabama or Auburn this year. All I know is whoever loses the Iron Bowl is going to be in a really bad spot.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then as far as like who I'm down on Missouri and Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bo Pribula coming in as a quarterback, but I kind of feel that Mizzou's kind of at like a talent deficiency now. And I'm kind of wondering like, will the people come start to turn on drink if they don't put it together? And
It's possible.
as possible, and as far as Ole Miss is concerned, Austin Simmons could be a lot of fun. They could surprise us a lot too. But also, like last year was the year where it needed to happen at Ole Miss, and it didn't.
Yeah. And I had Ole Miss here. Like I think it's pretty obvious. Like you look at I mean they went all in last year and didn't get it done. And like that's I keep coming back to the fact that they're not as all in. Like obviously you're not mailing it in or anything like that. That's not acceptable in the SEC or for Lane Kiffin. And like I still think they're going to be competitive. I still think they probably win 7 or 8 games, but I don't think at any point we look at this team and we're like yeah, they could make the playoff, and like we were there for much of the 2024 season.
100%. Yeah. Ole Miss. When are they going to start being serious groundhogs?
I don't know, man.
Are we even recording on Groundhog Day? That'd be great. Like,
I don't know what is
I
that
think
a
that's a
Sunday?
I think that's a Sunday. I'm not working that day.
Damn.
Day.
Yeah, no recording.
We work the next day. The 2-3.
That's right.
I don't know. That'd be great. Like,
We
a serious
we
groundhog.
should release a Sunday episode and then release the exact same episode on Monday.
Do you know your dog? Do you know your dog? Izzy loved the snow again. She was all about
Hell
it.
yes.
Her big thing is like take a couple of steps, shake her head, keep taking a couple of steps, shake her head. That's what she does. That dog, I wonder if Remus is the same where it's like every day is just a wide-eyed wonder of world. Like every day is a new exciting day.
Much to my chagrin, when I wake up and I like can't, I'm like trying not to fall down the stairs, walking down from our bedroom. Like that's what I experience.
And then Benji and Huron just like find a rug to lay on.
I'm gonna lay here until you ask me not to.
One dog goes where the sun is, the other one goes where the sun does not. And
That's
this is
right.
false. And I don't know if it's not easy to be me or a dog or Superman or whatever, but let's do some group of five for fighting here with our penultimate topic here today. I was doing about this. We were talking about this thing on what 3 yards of cloud of punt on Monday night.
Yeah.
I was like, with Notre Dame losing, that's like the longest active winning streak of like 13 games is gone. It was wild. And
Yeah.
we were in the wee hours of the morning or very late at night for me. I'm like, we were right on with Marshall being with 7,
Yep.
tied with Ohio U, who both have new head coaches. It's
Yeah. Of course they do. I mean, it's I guess like Marshall Marshall's deserves a huge asterisk because they didn't play in the bowl game. They
yeah,
forfeited their bowl game, and like that's weird. And also, like, I will say that I don't think Ohio's going to pull back. Marshall, I expect to pull back tremendously. Like
yeah,
this winning streak could be over week one. Ohio, maybe not. Ohio, maybe they are able to pull off some wins earlier there because like they hired from within. They're maintaining some continuity with Tim Albin leaving for Charlotte. So like maybe Ohio doesn't pull back, but both of these win streaks do feel a little flimsy, especially with some of the teams that are like directly behind them with 6 wins in terms of longest active winning streaks.
yeah. It's like 6 or 4 wins. I think the next one. So the next group is like Florida, Ohio State,
Yeah.
Syracuse, Illinois, and TCU, which is a complete shocker.
Yeah, who knew that TCU actually finished strong? Not me, that's for
No,
sure.
we're doing bowl and bowl and bowl and bowl, and we're like, is this even like? Are they even gonna make a bowl game?
Is this sanctioned? Like, are they in a sanctioned bowl game?
uh, I wish every time I think of you can take a sip of your coffee here for a second. Also, the last one I had it was cold and it was not good, and I do not like cold coffee.
I saw your face and I was like, is he about to like yak all over his keyboard? Like, what's happening
It was not good. It was not what I wanted at all, but I had it. I always think with Sonny Dykes, I always feel like he's the guy. It's like he's always like looking for like a missed bag at an airport. That's kind of the vibe. He's like, where's my duffel bag? That's my underwear bag. I can't find it.
Get off my plane.
He's like looking behind there. He's like, don't you put that in that compartment. That's where my underwear bag is.
Right.
The funny part is like apparently I think he was like on the Athletic podcast or something like that, or Andy and Ari or something at one point. And so his real name is Daniel. And like people like call him like, well, Daniel Dykes please shows up here. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's me.
Oh, I haven't been called Daniel in 100 years. Thanks.
Technically, that's my name.
I guess that's what's on the birth certificate.
I think it's like the same thing with like Frank Zappa's kid, like Dweezil. Like you can't actually name your kid that. We're not going to let you do that. So his name's like Michael or something.
I have a sad admission to make. So obviously, and somewhat tangentially related to names and stuff like that. But I've referred to the former Penn State wide receiver Harrison Wallace as Harrison Wallace throughout his entire career. Well, he's Harrison Wallace the third, which apparently people in Penn State call him Trey Wallace because of that. And so I kept seeing that Trey Wallace entered the portal. I'm like, who the hell is Trey Wallace, and why do people care about this? And then I realized it was Harrison Wallace, and I finally got my head screwed on straight.
It happens. It happens to the worst of us sometimes too. Names and everything. I don't think if there's anybody else. Like there was a guy who like stole someone's name, like Roberto Hernandez or Carlos Carrasco, whatever it was, with like the Cleveland back in the day. I'm like, who is
Yeah.
this person? Like, what is
Well,
going on?
he was 40 when he was saying he was 32. So at least we're not dealing with that.
No, we still also deal in a world where somebody didn't vote for Ichiro, which is unbelievable.
What are we doing here? Like, my God. My favorite Ichiro stat that I saw someone throw out there is since 1930, a player has accrued 240 hits in a season twice, and both were Ichiro.
Yeah,
Like, how are you leaving that dude off your Hall of Fame ballot? Like, what are we doing here?
I don't know. So it's Ichiro Suzuki, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner gets in on the final ballot with the first two getting on the first ballot. And then you had guys like Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, and Chase Utley just missed out. Like those are all Hall of Famers. I hate Carlos Beltran, but he's a Hall of Famer.
No, 100%, man. It's just like there are a lot of things about baseball that are frustrating. I think Hall of Fame voting might be the most frustrating just because like it's a it's so many old heads who like are just so caught up in their own self-righteousness. It's mind-blowing.
If it's not Larry Bird, it's BS.
That's
Dan
right.
Shaughnessy and then Rob Parker, just whatever. Oh my God. But like there's the next year's baseball ballot's not gonna have anybody like it's exciting come on. So like I hope this is the year that like they put somebody interesting from like the veterans committee. Like this is the year to put Don Mattingly and Dale Murphy and Lou Whitaker in the Hall of Fame. Like just figure that out.
I
And
mean,
then
just vote for Andrew Jones. Just vote for Andrew
Andrew
Jones.
Jones, Carlos Beltran, Felix Hernandez, Chase Utley, the
Dustin
world's yours.
Pedroia.
Dustin Pedroia, yes. I don't know if Brian McCann fell off the ballot, but I hope he gets it at some point. Kenny
Yeah.
Lofton, figure that out at some point. That was
D
stupid.
do something not stupid for once.
I'm not gonna vote for anybody. I'm Rob Parker. What's going on?
God, you know Dan Shaughnessy's turning in a blank Hall of Fame ballot. You know it's happening.
He's just gonna wipe his ass with it and send it
Yeah,
in.
100%.
Then Ryan Thibodeau's just like, God, that
Not
was
Mr.
gross.
Tibbs.
No, not Mr. Tibbs. But I guess to tie a bow on it with Group of Five for fighting, like as I was writing this, it's like there's only like three or four type of teams that can actually have an active winning streak. It's like, you know, you win the college football playoff, or you're a team that got hot late that wasn't going to make the playoff now. Like, your Syracuse's and your TCU's, or you're a team that like wins a Group of Five league that's not going to get in.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's basically what this boils down to. And like, like a Florida being in there, like we saw Florida save Billy Napier's job down the stretch, basically. And so like
Yeah.
that's why they're in there. Ohio State obviously won the college football playoff. Marshall and Ohio fit that group of five bill. So like it is about getting hot at the right time. And also like frankly, sometimes it's just the way the schedule breaks. Like if you're Illinois, where you played your toughest games of the season
Yeah.
or like in the Big 12 schedule, like early in the Big 12 schedule or Big 10, excuse me, sorry, early in the Big 10 schedule. And the back half of it tended to be easier. And so you get a little momentum going to bowl season, win your bowl game.
And then you look at like the teams that are in the playoff, like you've got 11 damn good teams who are going to lose. Like
Oh yeah.
that's how it's set up. And not that like Georgia had like the longest winning streak at that point or Indiana or anything like that, but they won a lot of games this past year. And obviously when you
Yeah.
go into next year, like you're ending on a bad note. Like it's the same thing with the NFL. It's like you either like are a non-playoff team and you win your final game or you win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you look at even like the top teams in the college football playoff, like you look at a Texas, frankly, like the longest winning streak they could have ended the season with would have been four because
Yeah.
they lost in the SEC championship game to Georgia. So like, like it's fun to talk about the active winning streaks. Does it actually mean that much? Not really.
All it does is like say like, okay, who might be good entering next year? But then in the
100%.
case of like Marshall and Ohio U, you're like, they have new head coaches. Also, like, I don't know what's going on with Marshall. Like Charles Huff would rather go coach. Like they wanted him out. They won a bunch of games. He'd rather go to Southern Miss. Then you bring in Tony Gibson, coordinating a defense that wasn't any good at NC State. Like
Yeah.
that's probably the worst hire of this offseason. I'm just like, what are
It's
we doing?
frankly, it might not be close. Like that's a dude who I thought might be in danger of getting fired from NC State, not going to be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah, when you saw that, you're like, what?
Yeah, like what are we doing here? I want to know. I want to know where Tony Gibson's at.
I want to know where Lou holds where you're at. And Lou Holtz doesn't know anything about Tammy Impala, but he knows something about the less I know, the better. The less I know, the better.
The less I know.
Let's finish the show with some thoughts about the college football playoff. The biggest thing that we got right in the playoff, the biggest lesson we learned, and the biggest thing we're going to keep getting wrong. Cody, you start. What's the biggest thing you got right from the playoff?
I think the biggest thing I got right going into the playoff was it's class wars, man. Like there are levels to this, and we saw the different levels, and not just Ohio State like beating whoever they did, but like the performances from the likes of SMU, from Boise State. Arizona State is obviously the outlier here, taking Texas to the wire, but I also think that's somewhat of kind of Texas, what Texas does,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And so like I think that we, and like Indiana, the way they got smoked, like I just think we saw that there was a definite cutoff, and it wasn't at the 12 team mark. It was probably at the 18.
yeah, I think that's fair. Biggest thing I got right, Oregon's completely fraudulent. I feel
Yeah,
so good about that. That was,
100%. You
yeah,
nailed that.
I was just like, this is like Dylan Gabriel is just not going to be ready for it, and he was not ready for it.
No, and I will say I feel like I'm a little vindicated for my Texas love. Like they gave Ohio State the best game of any team that Ohio State played
Yeah,
in this entire thing. And like it might have been a 14-point loss, but really it was a 7-point game where they were on the 1 yard line. Like let's call it what it was.
100%. What's the biggest lesson you learned from the playoff?
So this is kind of ethereal, and I pitched it yesterday to fansided.com. Winston Wilcox wrote a nice article on it, but we've got to look at the 12-team playoff different than we did the 14 playoff, because the 14 playoff you've got to win 2 games to be a national champion. This in the 12-team playoff you've got to win 3 or 4 games, and like that is a different thing. And like we have to start thinking of it more like March Madness, because being hot at the right time is almost more important than being the better team, because Ohio State was not the better team throughout the regular season. We talked about that's why they're not an all-time, great national championship champion in the college football playoff era. And they got hot at the right time. They found that extra gear. They found their level that they needed all season to be a great team and to win a national championship. Georgia did not get hot at the right time. They lost Carson Beck and they were trying to bring in a new quarterback. Like that's going to penalize you. And I think that getting hot at the right time, I think, is now going to be more important than ever. Like that's something I'm going to be looking out for, is like in Ohio State's case, like learning a lesson from them, which team has the potential to hit a gear that these other teams just can't. In terms of a Notre Dame's case, like which team have we not really seen necessarily like on a national stage in quite some time, but has just quietly been handling business after handling business against teams that you can't really like say were like lesser than competition. Like they beat a Louisville, they beat the pants off of Army and Navy. Like they handled business against good teams. And so kind of just like figuring out more diagnosing not who's the best team, but who's like playing the best going into the playoff and can carry that momentum through.
It's ethereal and it's March Madness.
That's right.
I used to always do that as a kid, like March Madness, and my dad's like, "You need to stop doing that." I can't take you to Publix looking like that, man.
They will deny you a pub sub.
Gentlemen, this is an Arby's. So what I would say the biggest thing that I learned is those home first round games really matter. Like winning that's like winning a 1.5 games. Like
Yeah.
you're not only like it's such a huge advantage. You think like, okay, maybe that like somebody can upset you there. No. And then like you win that game, you have so much momentum, you think you can take on the world. And that's why like every team that won a home playoff game like won like another game. Like it was, you look at Ohio State going up against Oregon, it's like, we're just gonna get buzzsaw. Georgia basically crawled into the playoff. Notre Dame kicked their ass. Arizona State probably did the best job of anybody in that second round, but Texas had a little more confidence there. And then obviously you look over there with Penn State, beating what SMU, and then they beat
Boise.
next Boise. Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. It's like they have more momentum. They have more momentum. Like they're running the ball like not they're running the ball out of a pistol, so they're going really fast.
That's right.
So that's kind of my big thing. So it's like a pistol formation. You're running behind the quarterback in shotgun. You're flying. Doesn't matter. You got to run further, but you're flying, man.
You're fine, man.
And what's the one thing you're going to keep getting wrong about the playoff?
I'm probably going to keep believing in Texas. That's probably not going to turn out well for me all the time, but I'm going to keep believing that Sark's going to get over the hump at some point. I think the like more pointedly, what I'm probably going to keep getting wrong is kind of the antithesis of what I just said. Like, I know I understand and I'm fully aware at this moment right now that like I need to start thinking about this more like March Madness and hot teams and momentum. I'm going to have a hard time discounting Georgia. I'm going to have a hard time discounting Oregon and teams that maybe aren't as hot going into this thing just because of what I've like discounting the body of work to the degree that I probably should.
I think that's fair. That was probably actually going to be mine, but so I'm going to say something a little bit different. I'm going to keep sweating out the team who loses the conference championship, thinking they're not going to get in. But in reality, like I don't think the committee is ever going to punish them for playing that game. It's just going to come down to seeding at that point. Like I'd be like, oh my God, is SMU not going to make it? No, they're going to make it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And some other years, like Bama, like don't lose 3 games.
Yeah. Don't like that.
Just
That'll help.
no. That'll help. That'll help a lot. Losing 3 games. You lost more games in the season than Nick Saban did in a decade.
God, you lost to Oklahoma, man. Like you lost to Oklahoma.
That's so bad. I mean, I kind of think that might be almost as bad as Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois.
It's like it's not as far off as it should be because like Oklahoma is Oklahoma, but like they weren't Oklahoma this year.
And this episode was not about Oklahoma until right now. Yes, this was episode 144 of Fall Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at The Sizzled One. You can follow the show at CFP. Fall Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. It's coming. It's a thumb, 2, 3, 4, 5-star review on Apple. It really helps the show out. It's become like a new thing. I love it so much. It's like, the ridiculous intros, the ridiculous outros, and the 5-star review.
5 stars, baby.
5-star reviews, 5-star hearts. Unbelievable.
Right there.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Butch Jones made the playoff one day?
No, I can't imagine that, quite frankly.
Don't go sobbing on the 50-yard line, and this is false start.